Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are happy to bring back Chris Barthelme. Excited to talk to him about the work he does as CEO and head coach of True North Motivation. I know you're based out of Spring Lake. That's North Carolina, right? Just outside of Fort Liberty. Welcome to the
That
show today. How are you?
doing pretty good. That's correct. Right outside of Fort Liberty, where I served for 8 years. So I stayed where I was at, and I love it here.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that. We're obviously going to get to know you and, of course, your background. First and foremost, tell me a little bit about what your company and you do at True North Motivation.
Okay, so True North Motivation is actually an umbrella company for both coaching and motivational speaking. Um, I find that coaching is best when we figure out what motivates a person, the why behind everything. So I try to sit there and determine how can I give somebody the purpose, direction, and motivation to get better. I can give you every tool in the book, but if I don't give you the motivation and the direction to go, I'm going to fail you every single time. We can give you a workout plan. I can give you, tools to get better at relationships. But if I don't figure out the why behind it, you're not going to get any better. So motivation is the number one key to what I do. And then getting to know my clients on a personal level so that way I can get to the root cause of why they're in bad behavioral patterns. So we can get better at it. We can learn, we can grow, and we can have healthier relationships, both with ourselves and with others.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here and can't wait to find out more. Now, the website to find you and contact information, would you mind telling us what that is?
Okay, so you can find me either on Instagram at True North Motivation. That's where I have all my motivational content. If you want coaching, you can go to tncoachingcollective.com. You can book your coaching there. I have a full line of clothing and apparel that kind of goes along with
Yeah.
what I do. It explains what we do a little more in depth, as well as some of the other coaches I have on board as well for the company.
Well, thank you for being here. And also, as a veteran, you were in the Army for 8 years, right? Would you mind
That
giving
is
us a little bit of your background?
That is correct. So in 2005, after getting out of college, I said, you know what? The war was kind of at its height right at that point. It was 2005. So I said, you know what? It's time that I serve my country. I've always kind of had that allure to battle, to doing the manly thing of getting out there in combat. So I said, let's do it. Once I got there, I decided I wanted the toughest of the tough. I didn't want
Wow.
to just be, I didn't want to be a cook. I didn't want to be, one of the support guys. So I said, give me the infantry. Once I found myself there, I said, give me airborne, give me ranger, give me everything that you can. I want to go through the hardest of the hard to really see how strong my mind was. So after, my first deployment, I went to ranger school, 62 days of grueling physical and mental tests where, in all honesty, ranger school is more of a mental test than it is
Really?
physical. So I went in 190 pounds. I came out about 165. So that tells you a little bit about what they put you through while you're there. So did that, deployed a few more times, once for a 15-month total deployment in 2007. We had the surge going on. Had some harrowing experiences while overseas. Came back and then actually became a ranger instructor at one point. Was able to see the flip side of it, learning how to push people to their absolute limit and then seeing how they can get past it, seeing how they get past it. And
Wow.
so when I did that, I realized that my truest passion in life has always been coaching. It's finding what makes a human being tick and then saying, you're going to push past this and I'm going to be here for every step along the way. If you're cold, I'm cold. If you're hungry, I'm hungry. And doing it right there with them to show them that it is possible and we can get through this together and showing people that they're not alone in life. And so
Amazing.
coming out of my military career, everything I've done since then is to mentor and coach others in the three areas I get to, which is fitness, nutrition, and life coaching, mainly in like the relationship kind of prep area, I call it, getting to know ourselves so that way we can communicate ourselves better in a relationship.
Awesome. So by you serving as student in a sense and as teacher, as the ranger instructor, I mean, you really were able to see both sides of the fence here. And I commend you on your service. Do you mind me asking where you served overseas?
All of my tours in combat were in Iraq. And then we also did serve, I served for 4 months after the earthquake in Haiti
Oh my
in
goodness.
2010. I went down there. We were actually one of the first groups to actually hit the ground. So We went to PT that morning. We got told we're not doing PT. You're getting on an aircraft. We were given about 3 hours to go get our bags, lock up our vehicles in our homes, and we were en route to Haiti. So I did 4 months there for humanitarian aid. And those were my 3 deployments all total.
Oh my goodness. Well, I commend you. I went overseas in 2000, I think it was 8 and 9. I went to Camp Spiker
Okay, I
and
was
over.
there.
You were? Oh my goodness.
Yep,
And
2007 and 8, I was there.
oh my goodness. And Camp Cupcake, we called it. You probably know the real name of it. I forgot at this moment, but not that I was deployed or served in any sense, but as a reporter, we went over there. And for the holidays, we spent about a week and a half with all the troops from the local New York area and brought them together with our New York TV station. And it was just to see what you all go through and staying in Kuwait and Tent City, like, oh my goodness, shocked to, the civilians out here, but I was impressed you had a subway. But no, in all honesty, I commend you for all your hard work in this. And wow, talk about, I can only imagine the training you went through. And I appreciate your service and
Well, thank
excited to
you.
talk more to you about the fitness, nutrition, and the life coaching that you do. And if you are just tuning in, don't forget, make sure you go to tncoachingcollective.com. And we are here talking to our friend and CEO, head coach of True North. So again, let's continue, Chris. Can you share what got you into coaching? Was it the military experience, or how did this all start for you?
So I've always been into coaching people in fitness and nutrition. I have a very strong background there, lots of certifications. So I've always done that. But then I had a lot of clients start asking me, do you coach in other areas? Because you seem to have your life together in so many
Hmm.
different areas. And it really mainly came down to I'm consistent and I'm extremely disciplined because the military has instilled that in me, obviously. And then through all of our training, we start looking back at the training, we realize that leadership training is really setting us up for success to be able to mentor others because the whole purpose of leadership is to provide that purpose, direction, and motivation. So I had clients saying, "Hey, I'm going through this really rough experience. Can you help me? Hey,
Hmm.
I'm about to go to college. I need someone to help give me some structure. Can you help me?"
Yeah.
So eventually I had a buddy, and I usually would tell them, no, I don't really get into that. So I had a buddy that was in basic training with me. He joked one night, he said, "I need to pay you to be my life coach. I'm going to college and I'm going to need someone to keep me
Wow.
on track and keep me accountable." And
Hmm.
I reluctantly agreed. And we set up weekly Zoom calls just to check in, make sure that we, divvied up all of his goals and made sure we had a good idea of what was coming in the future so we could plan for it. And that just started to balloon. I started to get
And
more people saying, "Hey, I'd like to get more coaching from you." The interesting part was that I found I have a knack for one specific area, and that's dealing with trauma and dealing with heartbreak and relationship trauma. My time in the military, I experienced an IED blast where a buddy was killed in action,
uh,
and having to deal with the regret and the pain of knowing that it was my fault, it led me to realize what trauma does to the body and how it can keep us in a certain state that we don't heal from it if we don't know it's even there. And then it tends to basically permeate into all of our relationships, friendships, marriages, family
hmm.
relationships, relationships with our children. And so I found I had a knack for healing not only myself, but showing others how to heal, how to come out of that trauma, how to understand ourselves better so that way we can interact better and just get a better quality of life. Then I started to mix in the fitness and nutrition because it does actually have a
Yep.
huge role in how our body responds. So it just seemed like a natural fit to deal with the trauma, the heartbreak, put it all together for these packages I do for clients where we talk about everything and we increase their quality of life by looking at it from a holistic perspective like that.
Beautifully said. All right. Well, you offer so many different types of coaching services. And I know you mentioned a little bit, well, life coaching in general, right? So that can cover anything from what, helping someone with a past trauma, getting to a better work situation. Life coaching, is that the umbrella of relationship too? Would that be under there?
Yeah, life coaching really it is in any direction that I know that I have a lot of
Got it.
experience in. Obviously, 8 years of military leadership has lent myself to be very good in any workplace that I've put
Hmm.
myself in because I can apply those to it. But it also applies to general life as well,
Yeah.
showing people how to have more consistency and discipline really goes a long way. And it permeates, like I said, into every facet of our life. If we get better at our discipline on daily tasks, we end up having a better work quality. We end up with better
Yeah,
relationships. We're able to get the fitness and nutrition where we want to get it. So I coach in those areas. I coach
right.
people through big life changes. If they want to make a switch in a job or a career, I help navigate that with them because I do have a lot of experience. I've worked so many jobs. People tell me sometimes they're like, it's like you've lived 10 different lives. I've done logging, I've done public utilities, I've done the military, I've done construction. So because I've done that, I can navigate in and out of these areas. It makes it very easy for me to help show people how to
What?
get from point A to point B.
Beautiful.
So it's an amazing journey doing everything into the life coaching, but I do find myself more in what I
Yeah.
call relationship prep and trauma coaching
All
more
right.
than anything, because
All
that's
right.
where I think the biggest need in the world is right now.
Sure. All right. Well, also you do the nutrition, fitness coaching as well. We'll get to that a little later, but let's talk about relationships and, what are some of the challenges that individuals are facing, when it comes to the dating aspect. Do you want to share a little bit about this?
Absolutely. So the one thing that has been kind of like that scarlet thread through everything I do is communication, but it's not what we think. We all think that it's communication. It's getting better at how to talk. It's really not. It starts with self-awareness.
Okay.
The biggest problem we run into is that people can say, "Oh, I know how I feel," but then as soon as you have to communicate that to another human being, you don't know what words you're feeling. And when it comes to emotions, it's not as easy as a math problem. It's not 2 plus 2, which is very easy to explain. An emotion can feel a certain way, but we don't know what word to put to it. So by searching ourselves and going through a self-awareness course, which I have a huge course that I put people through on learning what our needs are, and it's not as simple as, well, the 5 love languages. It's not that simple. It's a lot deeper than that. And once we learn what our needs truly are, we learn where our boundaries are, we learn how to set
Mm-hmm.
those boundaries,
Yep.
then we can actually have much better communication with our partner. Most of the disagreements I run into with people, with not just even in romantic relationships but friendships, is a communication block because we don't know how to communicate to them in a manner that they're going to understand.
Yep.
But it all starts with understanding ourself first. So once we do that, then we can communicate better, we project our energy out there better, and we get better at interacting with others.
Got it. Well, thanks for sharing this. I know you also want to talk more about self-awareness, emotional intelligence coaching, trauma abuse healing coaching. Before we do so, just remind us again of your social media page and website, if you don't mind, Chris.
The social media page is at True North Motivation
Yep.
on Instagram. I am on Facebook too, but not as much as Instagram. And then my website is tncoachingcollective.com.
Awesome. And you just finished up some events. I saw something in March you did with a live forum. Do you have any updated events coming up? And what were those
So
about?
every week on the subscription side of my Instagram, I have a weekly, basically a group coaching session. Every single Sunday, we do a live at 5. It's basically you come in, I teach a subject, and then you get to ask questions, interact with me. That way you can understand the topic. So coaching can be a little bit much financially for some people, but to now in the one-on-one sense, but you can still get value from having a group setting where I'm teaching what I call my repeatables. The same things that I find myself coaching every single week with people, I'll teach it on a broad spectrum. Teach the concepts there in the subscription side so that people can learn these broad techniques of how to apply themselves. Every single Wednesday, we do a live forum at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time as well, where I bring 3 topics to the table just for us to discuss. People can ask questions, but at the end of the day, those live forums, sometimes I have 3 topics to discuss, and we only end up discussing one of them because there's so much interaction on one area. And then sometimes somebody will bring something else to the table they want to discuss, and we'll talk about that. But it's just another general, like, group coaching session where people get a chance to interact and get what I call a little more than friendly advice, but a little less than clinical therapy. So it gives them that outside perspective where I don't have a stake in whether or not like emotionally in you. So I'm giving you more clear cut and logical advice. So it's a great chance for people to interact and get an idea of what coaching really feels like, especially for those that don't know what coaching is all about. it's a great way to kind of get started in that group coaching setting.
Beautiful. And at True North Coaching, it's yourself, and is there someone else who's a coach there too, I saw?
Yep, I do have one fitness nutrition coach.
Yes.
She is female, so she does a lot. She understands the female body a lot better than I do.
Yep.
She's really, really good at what she does. She does both fitness and nutrition coaching. It's one-on-one. You get a fitness plan or a nutrition plan, or you can do opt for both of them. And you get basically daily check-ins. You get a fitness plan for 2 weeks, and you get a nutrition plan for
Wow.
2 weeks, and then a daily check-in with your coach to make sure that you're A, being held accountable, and then B, that you understand the workouts and that you're getting the most out of them as well.
Beautiful. And what's her name? Kimberly?
Kimberly Noble.
Great. All right. Thanks for being here. And True North Coaching, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you're based out of, you said near Fort Liberty, North Carolina, but you're working with clients, I'm sure, all over the world, right?
Yep, I actually have one client in England. I've had clients in Greece, Sweden, and one in South Africa. So I've coached literally worldwide. When my Instagram blew up last fall, I went from 300 followers to what I'm at now, 175,000 followers in a matter of less than 6 months. So to say that my page has been inundated with people from all walks of life. I mean, my subscription, I've got people in Australia, I've got people in China, everywhere that come into it. And we all find that the world is a lot closer than we thought. We all go through a lot of the same
Yep.
experiences. And it's wonderful to get all those different perspectives in one forum like that.
Amazing. So excited to have you here. All right. What else did you want to share for today for our show here?
I just want to basically tell people that the world is not as big as you think. You're not alone in anything you go through.
Yep.
And that, it basically what everything boils down to for me in coaching is that I want to help you to not self-abandon yourself when you get into any form of relationship. And that comes through like we try to get validation from everybody else around us that we are doing the right thing. And so by doing that, we self-abandon and our relationships suffer because of it. We find ourselves people pleasing, right? So what my emotional intelligence and my trauma coaching does is gets us out of that circle
Yep.
and that habit of basically leaving ourselves just to make others happy. And so by doing that, we end up in a position where we live a much more fulfilled life when we're worried about making sure that our needs are taken care of. So that's the whole premise of my coaching, and you're not alone. You've got people that will help you and will support you through just about anything.
Now, do you mind if I ask you? You don't have to use people's names, but just some client experiences or stories, Chris, that I'm sure you're proud of, the people that you've helped. Could you give us some examples?
So I've had quite a few that have come out of actually narcissistic relationships. I found myself in one of those as well back in 2020, 2021, and into 2022. And so I have a knack for being able to help people through that. When you come out of that relationship, you're upside down. You really are.
Yeah.
And so teaching people how to ground themselves, the somatic practices of getting themselves out of fight or flight to where they can logically and rationally think through their emotions, it's one of the most gratifying experiences, especially with most of my clients are in such fight or flight. They don't even know it. It's just become a habit and a way of life. And recently there have been quite a few that they have these epiphanies through what I do that they're like, they look back. I call it the rear view mirror. They look in that rear view mirror and they see how they've been in this fight or flight state
Yeah.
for 5, 10, 15, even 20 plus years. And once they get out of it, it's like their life relaxes. And to see, like, when I see clients on a weekly basis, they go from being tense and sitting here and talking to me to relax. The color returns to their face, the smile returns. They enjoy talking about life, even when it is painful. They have a way of being able to articulate it where it's like it's painful, yet they get the value out of it at the same time. And there's nothing more gratifying than seeing my clients succeed. There really is not.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much. And I urge everyone to go to Instagram. It's True North Motivation on Instagram, right?
Correct.
Perfect. And make sure you follow him as well. And this is exciting work. I mean, let me ask you just about your younger years. Where were you born and raised? And what got you into, what were you like as a child? How did you end up in the military? Like, did you have your fair share of any trials and tribulations? And you can, I'm sure the military itself, but what was your background like, if you don't mind, growing up? And did you know any other coaches out there? Did you ever work with a coach before you became a coach?
Oh, absolutely. So I'll start at the beginning. I guess we'll do it timeline order here.
Sure.
So I grew up just outside of Chicago. Had a great childhood. We moved to Indiana when I was just before high school. And then I went to Ball State University. So I grew up in the northern Midwest area, right? I was the middle child, so I was always struggling. When you're the middle child, you're fighting for being seen and heard, right?
Yeah.
But great childhood with older brother, younger sister. My sister actually joined the military before I did. I joined the military as well and then came down here. Throughout my military time, I've always had a mentor and then had people I was mentoring. When I got out, I kind of lost that. And that's where I decided to actually I hired my own therapist because during my military time, I did suffer from PTSD quite a bit. You see some horrific things, and it's not something that I wish upon anyone to have to go through some of those experiences, but at the same time, it's built the man that you see here, that can persevere through any trial and tribulation. I've seen buddies die in combat. I've seen their last breath. It's not as harrowing as we all kind of see it in movies, and it's a lot more trauma on the outside. So after I got out in 2013, I have suffered the loss of 20 plus people for suicide alone. And so I started realizing that at some point, even though I wasn't willing to admit it, I figured I'd end up down that path. So I hired myself a therapist. That therapist started really, he was one that also identified that I was really great at identifying my own emotions and that I was really great at on my own kind of coming up with my own solutions. He said, "You'd be a really great coach." So at one point, we got to the point where it's like the therapy wasn't doing anything for me. And he's like, "We need to start looking at me becoming more of your life coach." So I still see him to this day. I consider him more of a business and life coach than anything because he basically helped me build my coaching practice. He has shown me all the ins and outs of how it works because my coaching practice isn't just like, "Oh, I'm going to give you a Zoom link." I have a full on back office. I run everything by HIPAA compliance. I do everything as if I was as close to a therapist as you can get without actually being therapy. So he has coached me through it the whole way. And he's been one of my biggest cheerleaders since day one. And so I urge people like when people kind of cringe at the idea of a coach, I always say, well, Michael Jordan had a coach. And he specifically said, "I will only use Phil Jackson as my coach." And seeing that and realizing it, no matter how good we are, we always need somebody to look at our blind spot, to help us see what we're not seeing, and to help us rationalize and reflect to us what we're not seeing, to help us build and get better. And my therapist used this term that I still use to this day. He says, "I'm the caddy on the golf course. You're the golfer, and you're going to take that next shot. I'm just handing you that club that's going to make that shot a little bit easier. I'm going to give you a little bit of advice like, have you looked at it from this perspective? I think we need to use this club." And that really rings true for everything I do. My clients, it's their life. I'm not telling them what to do or how to do it. I'm saying, have you looked at it from this perspective? What about this? What about that? And that spurs their own thinking, which means that it gets them to actually get past the problem themselves, which at the end of the day, it gives them more confidence as they walk away. I don't want them to be my clients forever. I want them
Mhm.
to be clients to the point where they don't need me anymore. It's kind of like kids. You kind of like, all
Like a
right, it's your
parent.
turn to
Yep.
go and do your own thing, right?
Exactly. You got to raise them and hold their hand, guide them, be their cheerleader, but they have to start taking those steps by themselves. But yeah, that's awesome. So you're guiding someone because people always ask, "Well, I don't understand." This is what I hear. "Well, what's a life coach? Why don't I go to a counselor? What's the difference?" And how would you describe that? I describe it as kind of what you said about the cheerleader holding someone's hand, guiding them on future endeavors. Counseling's more like going back to the past, right? Like to find
Yep.
out what's wrong, right? Could you explain it in your own terms if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
the best way, and I explain it on my website, and this is the best way I can always think of to do it. When we look at therapy is rearward looking. We're trying to heal what has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, it comes to the position where you need to learn tools to move forward. So coaching is forward looking and it is always objective based. Whereas looking backwards in therapy is all subjective and it's all emotion based. So once you've got that point of healing, you move forward.
Yeah.
But what my coaching practice, what makes it truly different than a lot of them is that I'm stuck right in the middle. So I look backwards to understand the past. Using that frame of reference, I know what tools to give you to look through the windshield to keep moving forward. Because we talk about it all the time. If I were to try to drive forward looking in the rear view mirror, I'm going to knock into a whole bunch more stuff.
Yeah.
So I try to get you to look forward while every once in a while glancing back to see where you've come from. And that's where coaching really is a forward-looking, objective-based thing to do, basically.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for sharing that. I notice, do you have your own podcast? Or I know you're a guest on a lot of podcasts, but there was something on your Instagram page recently with some guy. You guys were doing this podcast. It was funny. I started watching it before. Is that your show or his show or
That's his show. So that's Army of Great
Army of
Men.
Great? Yes, yes, that was
So
it.
basically, what's going to end up happening is he's going to have me on as a guest. He just started this podcast up a couple
Cool.
months ago. He's like 6 or 7 episodes deep, but he wants to have people that are kind of reoccurring guests, the Army of Great Men. He's
Got
got
it.
about 6 or 7 of us already, a couple of them ex-NFL players that played for the Buffalo Bills and for, I believe, the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals. So utilizing us and our different perspectives, we're going to have different conversations as time goes on. But you're right. I end up on a lot of podcasts.
Oh,
I got another one coming up tomorrow. It's called the Standalone Podcast, and that one will be airing tomorrow, I believe, at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you go on my page, I'll have links for it. All of these are basically relationship based and healing trauma and getting past some of the best or the worst parts of life, the darkest parts that we go through in life.
and you also you have shirts and hoodies and you have a shop as well. Tell me about it's the I Am Chosen collection, and then you have a lot of like inspirational words. I was reading about love and faith,
Yep.
and tell me about the collection, how that started.
So basically, I've always had like I always like to wear shirts that when I look in the mirror, I think, yes, I am, right? And so I have what I call the collegiate collection. It looks a lot like shirts you'd buy if you went to like a university, right? Like, if you went to Harvard, you'd have the shirt that has the thing on the front of it, right? So I've got disciplined, blessed, hopeful, like phrases that mean something to people. And that's my collegiate collection. I've got a collection of hoodies. I call it the over under collection. Faith over fear, actions over words, things that ring true to different people to remind
Mm-hmm.
them of who they are and where they're going. Me, I always wear my faith over fear because I keep Christ close to me at all times. And whenever I start having a fear come in of abandonment or
Yep.
whatever it is, I lean into Christ and I say, you take that fear from me because it's not something I can deal with. So that's what that collection's about. And then the I Am Chosen because God chooses us all for different purposes. And I believe that this path that I'm on with my coaching is
Mm-hmm.
all from Him blessing me with these clients. I have done literally zero advertising up until this point. I have not done anything. Everything has been from my voice, utilizing all of my
Yep.
reels, and then just people coming to me with the need to get better at life. So
Amen.
I know I'm chosen, and I know everybody else is chosen for a path, and that's what that series is about. Bible verses on the back
Beautiful.
telling you basically I choose love, I choose, discipline, I choose those different things that the Bible teaches us how to be.
All right, and I wish I had this is my coffee mug, but if you can see it, it's going in and out there. But I wish it said Jesus juice on it. I saw some of those too. And all right, you have a
Those
coffee
are
cup?
awesome. The
All
Jesus
right.
Juice Cup is awesome. That one's one of my best sellers right now,
No,
anyways.
well, it's a pleasure having you here. Great getting to know you. One more time, reach out to how do our listeners reach out to you? Tell us all the contact information, please. And do you offer an initial consultation for someone, or how does the initial process work of getting
So they
started?
can book, well, they can, first of all, they can go to at True North Motivation on Instagram and they can
Yep.
find out a little bit more about me there, or they can go to my website, tncoachingcollective.com. They can book actual life coaching, or they can book what I call a discovery call.
Perfect.
Discovery call. I mean, obviously you want a coach to be a good fit. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that there's a good vibe there. Same thing with a therapist, right? So it's a 30-minute session. I get to know you. We ask some questions. We figure out where you're trying to get to. And I'll be the first to tell you, if it's something that I don't have experience with or I don't know enough about to coach, I won't take you on as a client. But I do have great resources at my disposal between therapists and other coaches that I work with that I'll push you to somebody that's an expert in that area and say, this will be your person right here. I'm very good at identifying when there's a good match between two people. So even if I don't have the answer, I'll at least have a direction to push you to get to the right direction.
All right. Thank you so much. Pleasure getting to know you here. Please reach out. Chris, pleasure having you, and hope you have a fantastic evening. Thanks for all this inspiration, and best of luck with your success, and of course, increasing the high number you already have on Instagram. But this is great. People are listening. Obviously, they're liking what you're saying. They're believing in what you do because it's working. So thank you for that, and pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And to all of our listeners and viewers, stay tuned. We will be right back with more. Don't forget tncoachingcollective.com. Tell them we sent you, and have a blessed day. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.